Couples are asked what they struggled with most in their marriages. The most common answer is communication issues. And in most cases, married couples probably don't say that too much communication is the issue. Too much communication is really not too bad, not most times. Almost every issue, with some exceptions, in marriages stem from communication problems.
In this episode, we're going to look at some of the communication problems we have encountered in our marriage.
So stay tuned. Here we go. We're back. So let me start by reading a few Bible verses that I highlighted. I picked out one about communication. James chapter 1, verse 19. Know this, my beloved brothers, but everyone must be quick to hear, slow to speak, and slow to anger. Proverbs 18:21 is one I like. Death and life are in the power of the tongue. Then Ephesians chapter 4, verse 29. Let no unwholesome word proceed from your mouth, but only such a word as is good for building up what is needed, so that it will give grace to those who hear. So we're talking about communication in marriage in this episode, and we want to talk about our experiences, not what we think, not what we've heard. We're going to talk about what we have dealt with, our communication issues. The first weekend of May last year, Lori and I went to a family life weekend to remember marriage retreat. Highly recommend you do that. We're going to go again in May. It's going to be good. It's going to be our refresher. We're going to probably need it. We had been having some struggles for the past 2 or 3, 4 or 5 years leading up to the marriage retreat. We both agreed that we needed something to help us. We needed to do something about our marriage. We found ourselves in a rut. And we found ourselves drifting apart. Neither of us wanted to keep going that direction. We both knew deep down inside, individually, that we loved each other, and we were both committed to our marriage, and we loved our family, and we wanted things to be better. We just weren't doing it right. And we didn't know how to do it right. On a marriage scale, we were rated at the Weekend Family Life to Remember on a marriage scale from 1 to 10, 10 being what you want, perfect marriage. And like one, 2, or 3 means you're about to get divorced. We rated ourselves about a 5, on the low end of a 5 of the oneness scale. After the first day of the marriage retreat, we both realized our number one problem was our dysfunctional communication. Yeah, that's the best way to call it, dysfunctional. So we both made a list, communication issues that we had and what we have done to better our marriage through those communication resolutions we made.
And the marriage retreat revealed many different issues we were facing in our marriage, and each of these issues stemmed from poor communication. We were both committed to our marriage, but we realized that commitment alone does not equate to a thriving marriage. We were missing the oneness that a husband and wife needs to have in a thriving marriage. We were missing unity in our marriage. We were heading in a direction in our marriage where we began to be two different individuals, living in the same house, with different lives and not connecting in meaningful ways. Things had to change, and we were committed to making that change and realized we needed to do that and beginning to changing the way we communicated with each other. In this episode, we will discuss the communication problems we experienced in our marriage. And in the next episode, we're going to talk about how we changed our communication and how our marriage began to thrive.
That's right. So, and before we start, I got it. We got our list. We got it scripted, and we know what we want to say. But let's say a few things off script. We got to where we were kind of scared. We were really concerned about our marriage, and we didn't want to fail. We found ourselves just
Just going through the motions, I guess.
yeah. And when we get mad at each other, it was madness on a scale of 8.5 to 9 on a scale to 10, and it wasn't a lot of forgiving and forgetting. It was a lot of half-heartedness, and we have problems with our boy sometimes, and that led to problems with us because we didn't see eye to eye on that. So I had realized that hey, there's a weekend family life marriage retreat going to Branson in May, so we signed up for it, and that was our start of the road to a better marriage. Is it perfect? No, no. But at least we are progressing in the right direction. We have hope, and we know that it's in our hands now to make our marriage great. We know how to do it. Whether we do it right every time is a different story. But when we are messing up, we know right away we're messing up. But it started with communication. So I made a list, and we're going to share that list. We're going to go back and forth. So our communication problems, and each one of these problems were on a scale of 9 on a scale of 10. So number one, little to no communication. Little to no. You ever get busy in life? We got busy. We got busy. She's a school teacher, and I was in the Air Force, and now I'm still working a job. And we both come home, and she's exhausted, I'm exhausted, and the boys are doing their own thing, and we just kind of drifted apart, two separate spaces in the house. And we would talk to each other, but she would say something to me. Yep, 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 yep. And same thing with her. I'd say something to her. Yep, yep, looking at her phone. And then 2 or 3 days later, you remember what I told you the other day? What? You didn't tell me that. You know,
Mm-hmm.
any of you married couples out there know what we're talking about? Or service level communication. Hey, how you doing? Okay, okay, well, see you later. Okay. I better talk to her. Hey, good to see you. Okay, well, okay. Surface level communication. We had gotten used to living two different lifestyles while living in the same family unit. You ever heard that the married couple say, we're like roommates? We weren't quite there yet, but we weren't too far from it. We went to bed at different times. And some of you might be thinking, yeah, we do that too. Don't. Don't do that. We woke up at different times. Sometimes, when I was working night shift in the Air Force, I'd get up, uh, I'd sleep all day and then go to work, and then you'd be getting up as soon as I come home. Circumstances were different. But if a husband and wife both work the same times during the day, and if you're able to, go to bed at the same time. Start your day off together, end your day off together. We rarely had conversations that were more than just a few words. We were on the road to becoming roommates.
Number two is being too busy, preoccupied, and not making time for meaningful conversations. And like he was saying, he was doing his thing and I was doing mine. We were not thinking about the other person or his or her needs, and we were becoming disconnected. So he, does all his Greek studies and stuff, which is fine. I'm glad that he does that. And he would do that, and I would be doing my school stuff. And now we kind of try to make an intentional effort to put those things away, which we'll get into that in the next
Yeah,
video. But we just kind of he did his thing. He would go to bed, and then I would stay up
yeah,
and be on the stupid phone wasting time.
yeah. And when either one of us stayed up, were we doing anything worthwhile?
No.
Probably not. Sometimes I'd watch some stupid TV show. It wasn't worthwhile. Okay, so yeah, number three, we were not listening to understand. Not listening to understand. I would say something to her, and she wouldn't quite get it. She wouldn't quite understand what I'm trying to say. A lot of times I just didn't say it right. Or she would say something to me, and I might not took the seriousness of it, or I might not understand her reasoning behind something. And she might have said, hey, let's maybe think about doing something. So I thought about it, and then I just no. So I just blow it off. And so when that certain thing comes, hey, we're gonna do this today. Do what? Told you to think about. Oh, I said no. But so you have to listen to understand. Uh, we were not clearly communicating important weekly events. Oftentimes we were disconnected about weekly events, activities, whether it be the kids, boys at school, or things we had planned. We miscommunicating them, and we're not clearly communicating our needs. I might need something that I don't clearly communicate. So when I say something, it gets miscommunicated. So something that we would need, or maybe want, it gets communicated as, well, it's not it's not on my scale of importance list, so I'm not going to worry about that right now. Or here's the thing that I've learned when communicating to understand. And she will say something to me, and instead of it not registering, and I go, I just don't understand what that is, so I'm just gonna I don't know. All right, I don't get. I'm just gonna move on, ignore it, or just move on. I'm not gonna ignore it, but I think, you know what? What are you trying to say? Explain it to me again. Explain it. Let me say it in different words. Understand what you're saying to each other. Okay, I got it. Now I can listen to understand. Look at each other like this. Look at each other. Listen to understand. Sometimes this is awkward, but this is what you got to do. All right, number 4.
Not resolving disagreements and anger issues. Most of our arguments were over the boys and not being on the same page when issues arose with our boys, mainly our youngest. He would, say something to him or give him a consequence or whatever, and I didn't agree with it, and so we would end up in an argument or something. Or sometimes he would tell our son to do this or do that, and I didn't know he told him to do this or to do that, and then, I would get upset because he didn't tell me what he told him, and back and forth, just stuff like that.
Yeah, and we do that now. I'll go in there and say, look, he didn't do his schoolwork or something, and I told him that, and I'm gonna take away his phone. So now you know. So if he comes running to you asking for his phone, you know why I took it.
And then we had disagreements that led us to screaming at each other, and we would go to bed with unresolved issues. So after we would have an argument, we would just go to bed and be mad,
Yeah,
be mad at each other.
yeah. And hey, look, I hear people say sometimes you just gotta step away. Just stop fighting and take a break and get to it some other time. Well, we learned, I guess it all depends on how you do it. If you do that, I'm not saying you gotta step away and then come right back to it 5 minutes later. But if you do that, the next opportunity you can get back. Hey, remember what we was talking about last night? Let's talk about this again. That didn't happen with us. Whatever we were mad at, and we went to bed still mad at each other. That never got brought up, and that never got resolved. Not never, but most of the time. We just forgot about it or just swept it under the rug. And those things pile up and they pile up and they pile up and they pile up. Next thing you know, you got a big blow up because you're not resolving your problems. And that's not good in a marriage. It's not good in any relationship, especially in marriage. Okay. Where are we at?
Number 5.
Number 5, avoiding physical intimacy. A lot of people think this is the number one killer in marriage, and I guess it can be. But you know how do you know how you solve the problem with physical intimacy?
You don't want physical intimacy.
Well, you talk about it.
Yeah.
You talk about it. On a scale of 1 to 10, what would you say we were at about before we did all this talking about it?
As talking about it,
Yeah.
0.
Yeah, maybe 1. Well, you'd hear negative responses, so I guess there was maybe a point.
There was no not constructive, productive conversation about it, I guess.
Yeah.
That's a good word.
But we got it. And when you go to those marriage conferences, I don't know about the other organizations, but Family Life, they give you these situations where you got to talk about it. So they said, okay, now we are going to take a break. So look at page whatever in your book and look at these questions. Now sit there and talk to each other. So you go.
We gotta talk about this.
We're supposed to talk about sex. And we did. It was awkward at first, but you know what? It led to a lot of things we would have never done. It led to us getting the calendar out and marking X's on the calendars for planning ahead. And does that mean that absolutely has to happen? No. You know what that means?
Makes us intentional.
Makes us intentional. Makes talk that. And we actually got we were actually reading things about sex and physical intimacy that we would never read before. Even with the first day we went to that marriage conference, there were tables of books out, and one of the books was about sex and marriage, and we
were like, nope, not getting that one.
I think we have.
We ended up getting it later. After the weekend, we ended up getting it.
I think we can particular. Um,
And then number 6 goes kind of along with that.
Yep.
Not having intimate, personal conversations. We were not sharing our deepest feelings with each other. Part of this is that we just didn't know how, or we were just afraid to do so.
Yeah.
Your spouse is the one person you should be able to talk to and share your most intimate, private thoughts with. we weren't doing that very well
And you
at
know
all.
what we did is when we decided what it was one of the speakers that Raymond Causey they called it, or in the book they call it pillow talk.
Pillow talk,
You
yeah.
know, the secret conversations you have at night in your bed while you're laying next to each other, pillow talk. And we found out things about each other that we should have found out before we got
Hmm.
that hindered our intimacy. And I was listening. I'm thinking, I didn't know that. It would have helped. And you think you know, found out things about me that you didn't know. And you're thinking, if had we have known that you had these previous problems in maybe a previous relationship, that we could have worked through those things, the deep intimacy things. What else you got on that?
I say that it led to me specifically realizing that I had some trauma from my previous marriage that I didn't really realize I had until we actually started talking about it. And so he was able to help me work through those things and make me feel like kind of take away my negative perceptions of what intimacy was and what it was about. And
Yeah,
he helped me work through that stuff.
yeah. And husbands and wives, whoever it is, you may have to talk about some difficult things, and the other person might go, you know, that's something that's gonna. I might think that that's a problem I never really thought about. That's gonna be good for me to know, but it's gonna change the way we interact with each other. And some of the things we told each other helped each other grow.
Hmm.
You got anything else on
I
that?
don't think so.
But talk to each other. And there's a section in the book, um, Fierce Marriage, and also the books of how you speak to your husband and wife by Ryan and Selena Frederick. I recommend those books. Fierce Marriage, and then how you speak to your husband, how you speak to your wife. They talk about sensual conversations, speaking to each other, um, not in an X-rated way, not in an X-rated way, or not pornographic. And I've heard some Christian podcasters say it's okay to say those nasty stuff to your husband or wife. And I don't think that either.
Yeah.
But you can say sensual things, like the Book of Solomon or the Song of Solomon is all about sensual talk from husband and wife. And that's a good book to go to learn about sensual things. Um, okay, number 7. This is last on our list. Not showing true appreciation for each other. You're my husband, you're my wife, we're just married, it's the way it is, we just gotta like each other whether we like each other or not. You know, taking each other for granted. Man, that is true. All these things that we've listed so far caused us to start slowly drifting apart. And one of the buzz phrases at the weekend to remember is stop the drift. So they would pause and tell us, okay, now we're going to talk about this certain situation that we've been teaching you about. So we're going to stop the drift or halt the drift. So in this situation, like talking about communication or finances or your sex life or whatever it is, your anger issues, these are the things that cause you to drift apart. So you want to talk about these things so you can stop drifting apart. This was when we were giving time to talk to each other, and it led us to practice real communication. You had to look at each other. Uh, kind of awkward, but we learned how to do it. It was at that conference that we realized that we could turn all this around and that we were truly committed to our marriage and that we wanted to show each other appreciation. But in order to do that, you got to be intentional about it. You can't just say, "Well, she cooks dinner, and I sometimes I do the laundry, and um, takes care of the boys, I take care of the boys, and we just do things out of habit, and um, we just take each other for granted." You gotta say, "Hey, I'm glad you cooked dinner today," and and she'll tell me that I'm glad you helped me clean the house, or write each other letters, tell each other you appreciate each other. Every once in a while, just go up to them and ask them how their day is. Write them notes. Um, We're not big on. I don't like talking on the phone, but we'll text each other
Mm-hmm.
periodically. Stay connected. Show that you care for each other. Don't take each other for granted, and that will pay dividends. Okay. Yes, we are in our house recording this, and you hear a bunch of wild dogs. That is our dogs. We
Out in the
have
backyard.
yes, we have a pack of dogs. So in conclusion, part one, and next week we're going to talk about how we fixed all this. All this sounds pretty bad, and for most people, having one of these problems would lead to divorce. But we were determined to not any of this break us apart. So I wrote down some things that a husband and wife should never say to each other. Some ways you should never act to each other. Number one, never threaten divorce. It's something that was never on our mind.
Mm.
That's one of the reasons why we married each other, because we both have a committed attitude. And she knew that about me, and I knew that about her. So no matter how bad it was, I would never say, if you don't stop this, I will divorce you.
Mm-hmm.
Don't say that. Don't think that, because even if you don't mean it, the other person don't know.
Mm-hmm.
And that's a serious threat. And after a while, that might become, you know what, that doesn't sound too bad. Maybe I do need to do that. Move on. Find me somebody else that appreciates me.
Yeah.
Never say things like, well, you never this, or you never that. Or in another way is, well, you always say this, or you always do that. You know what I mean? Anything else to add on that?
Mm-hmm.
This is kind of like this divorce. Don't say that, and don't say I hate you,
Yeah.
or you make me sick. Or what else?
Mm.
I know it sounds bad, but you see husbands and wives do that. I just can't stand you sometimes. Or even when you're joking around, I don't like that. I love you, but sometimes I don't like it. Stop. Don't do it, because that's tacky and it doesn't help. It may sound funny, but it's not.
Yeah.
Or sometimes I wish I never married you.
Or I should have married so and so.
Yeah, yeah. I wish you was like that, my friend's wife.
Yeah.
You see what she does for him? Don't speak in negative tones. Okay, whatever.
And sarcastic.
You're sarcastic.
Yeah.
What else about that? You talking about the social media thing?
Yeah. Don't publicly bash your spouse on social media or in a group setting.
Yeah, yeah,
If they did something that got on your nerves, talk to them about it privately.
yeah, yeah. We're at a function, and my wife ain't here yet. I don't know why. She's like, oh my goodness. Well, let me call her. Woman, where you at? My goodness, we're about to start. Come on, woman.
And then she comes in dragging the 2 or 3 kids that you're not helping her with.
Don't speak negatively about physical intimacy. Don't speak negatively, especially around other people. Yep, yep. I'll be going to bed again tonight. I'll be going to bed by myself again tonight, but that's pretty normal, Yeah.
Yeah, it's just like with the publicly saying negative things about your spouse. Don't,
Yeah.
especially that.
Don't do it. Don't do it. And don't keep bringing up old business.
Yeah.
Especially when you're mad. When you're mad and you're fighting, you want to just say, yeah, this is like that one time 5.5 years ago. You remember that? Yeah. Uh-huh. Or that day we was out doing such and such 13 years ago, and so, yeah, yeah, yeah. Or even yesterday you said this. Well, how are we supposed to forget about that? What about forgiving and forgetting? Don't bring up old stuff. Did I miss anything on this?
I don't think so. I can't think of anything else.
Okay, so that was how not to communicate and some of the problems we've had. So next week, hey, it gets better, and our communication got better, and our marriage got better.
Mhm.
And so the next show is going to be a more positive, more transformational, and you're going to go, wow. I think you're going to go, wow. I think they're going to go, wow.
Yeah, you can fix it.
You can fix it. They fixed it. You should have heard the problems they had in that first episode. So stay tuned.